Right, so in this final installment of our reusable responsive form component, we're going to be talking about how to handle the form submission, take the data from the form and put it into a database. Now, the database that we're going to be using is the Firestore database offered by Firebase. Firebase, I mentioned in my first video, is a really, really great service. And we're just basically going to be putting it into a database so that we can then do whatever we want with the information. There's countless applications for databases. I'm not going to go into what you can use databases for, but I mean, if you have data, it's going to be stored in a database. And data is the new liquid digital oil or whatever it is. It's basically very important. Now, again, we're going to be building it with thoughts of reusability in mind. That's going to be at kind of the core, and it just means that we'll be able to reuse it in any project that we like. So first of all, when we want to start using the Firebase software developer kit and start interacting with Firebase, we need to initially install it. So we need to do npm install Firebase. Now, I've already got it installed in this current project that I'm working on, which is where I'm going to be demonstrating it. So that's probably why. Well, I'm also using yarn, so you can go yarn add Firebase. It's probably going to say that I've already got it. But once you've installed Firebase, then we can start importing some of the classes and objects within Firebase. So the first one we're going to have to get is the const initialize Firebase. Initialize Firebase, and that's going to be from Firebase /app. Expected comma. Right, so it's not initialize Firebase, it's initialize app. That clear things up? No, it doesn't do that either. I don't know why. Right, yeah, I'm just being Muppet. It's not const, it's import. So we're importing the initialize app object from the Firebase /app. And we're also going to be importing some stuff related to Firestore specifically. So we're going to be installing, importing get Firestore, the collection, and add doc. This is add document. Another thing that I've added into our form, actually, into the components of the props, is Firestore collection. This will be the name of the collection that we want to either add data to or create data and then add it to this new created collection. So this will be, again, something that you then input on the relevant page where you want to use this component. So we've got initialize app, we've got get Firestore. So now we want to just initialize our Firestore app. So the way we do that is we give the initialize app, which you'll be saying const app equals initialize app, and then we're going to be putting in our configuration in there. So the configuration is something unique to each Firebase account. When you create your own project, your own web app project on Firestore, which is not something I'm going to be showing in this video. If it's something that people would like to see how to do, I will create a video for it. But it's all very, very straightforward. I will attach the link to Firestore below. But you essentially get a configuration object. Now, this shouldn't be shown to anybody. So it roughly looks, it's going to have we'll just call it config, because obviously it's the same name. So it's going to have an API key. It's going to have auth domain. It's going to have project ID. It's going to have a storage bucket and a lot of other stuff, which I don't want to show what mine is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file with the relevant information. I'm going to export the object from that file and import it in here. And then I'm just going to put it into my initialize app. Actually, no, what I'm going to be doing is something, an even better way to do it is I'm going to be creating, now I've actually moved over from the React project that I used in the previous two videos. Now this is my own personal project. And the reason why I've done that is because I deleted the file from yesterday stupidly. So I'm just going to be, this is in Next, which is obviously a framework built on top of React. Now, when you're doing Next and you want to have your own .m variables, you need to use .m.local. So I'm just going to be adding my own API keys in here. And then from there, I'm going to be saying, okay, API key equals process.m. Was it next underscore public, and then whatever the actual name is. So I'm just going to set that up quickly now. So for us to use these env local variables in our project, we need to prepend them with next underscore public. That's just something specific to Next. If you're just using a React app, for example, you just create a .env file, .env, after installing the npm package, process env or something, or .env, .env. You do npm install .env. You set up a .env thing, and then you also need to install. You need to import that env file into your project. With Next, you don't need to do any of that. You just need to create a .env.local file, and then prepend all of these with next underscore public. I'm just going to paste in my information for these parts, and then I'm going to be able to use it in this particular configuration file. Cool. So now I've got that all sorted out. We can, so we're passing that into the initialize app class. I think it's a class. Yes, it must be a class, and then this is just the what we're given it, or the initialize app function, whatever it is. We're passing it in there. Then we're going to be getting our database from Firestore. So we're going to be saying const db. This is going to be our database object, and that's going to be get Firestore from this Firebase Firestore thing, and we're going to be passing in our app configuration into that. So now we've got our database, and now we can use these inbuilt functions from the Firestore, use that with the database, and create some functions to add content and upload our information from our form. So as I mentioned in one of the previous videos, we've got a button with submit. Now when this button is clicked, the onSubmit function in the form will be executed. So we're going to have this onSubmit function. Okay, nice. And it's going to so we're going to want to take the information from within the form. So we're going to take it as an event, and first of all, we're just going to do event.prevent default, e.prevent default. But before we do anything, I'm just going to console log what this event is. So I'm just going to do console log, and we'll say the event. This will contain all of the information within this form. So if I then go into the app, reload. Right, so something happened there. I've just had to close the app and restart it with the new imported next .env variables. So if we've got this contact form here, Jake is the name, email jake.hall, that's my personal email, and then question, whatever, submit, inspect. So if we have a look at the console, when we submit this form, this is what the event is. So within this event, we get a bit more information. So we get the target, which has all of this information. So let's now actually see what the target gives us. So event.target, this is going to give us a bit more useful information. And nice, the event, this is the form itself. So it gives us what all of the inputs are, contact form, whatever. Also gives us the this information, and also it gives us the user inputted, what the user has put in, if we then do the value of it. But this is essentially an array. So we've got an array within our we've got an array within our form. Now I'll show what I mean when I say we have an array. So if we go into our code and we have this e.target, if I put in 0, that will give us the first element of that array. So that's going to give us the input type of text, ID, name, and so on. that's referring to this name. The second element, or the element 1, is going to therefore be the email. And we can also get the value of what the user has put into that by using the value property. So I put Jake.Hall in here, and Jake.Hall SLM is going to come out. We can also get the name, because we've given it a name in our code, which has been actually added in by the user on the part of the website where we want to have where we want to inject it. And the name of it is email. So we have the two most important, essentially, bits of information. We have what the name of the form input is, of the particular form input is, and also what the user has put in themselves. And we can use this for our database as kind of like a key pair. So within our document, we'll have an email and we'll have what the user has inputted. Now, because we get this information in an array, we can loop through the array and create an object which will then send over to the Firebase, to the Firestore, and we can loop through it. Depending on the length of the array, shows how many times we need to loop through it, and this is what's also going to make it reusable. This is what's going to make it so that we can, no matter how many inputs we have in this form, it will always loop through every single one using the name of the input as the key pair, and then the user value, what the user has put in, the client has put in, as the actual value of it. So for that, we're just going to be creating a nice for loop. And first of all, we're just going to create an object which is going to be, we'll call it the data, the user data. This is what the data has put in themselves. And at the moment, it's just going to be an empty object. Now we want to set up a for loop, so we're going to say for let I equal 0. We're going to be saying I less than the e dot target dot length. Now, if we have a look quickly again at what e dot target gives us, let's first of all, let's have a look quickly what e dot target gives us again, just so I can show you something which is worth noting. So we've got e dot target. Now, what does it give us? It gives us this button is included with it. It gives us the form text. This isn't involved in this. It doesn't count as an element for some reason. I'm not sure why, but this is kind of ignored. But the button itself, that is included in the e dot target. So if I console log e dot target dot length, then submit that, it's got a length of 4, and that's because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we're doing a for loop and we're saying that for let I equal 0 and let I iterate until it's I less than e dot target dot length, it's going to iterate and try and get information from this submit button. We don't want that because there's no useful information from it. So we actually want to do e dot target dot length -1, and that's going to give us just 3 iterations of the name, the email, and the question. Finally, we're just going to say I++, because after every iteration we want I to increase. Now, I mentioned before we get two useful bits of information from this form. We're going to get the name, so we'll say const name, and that's going to equal e dot target I, so the element of the array. So for example, to begin with, it'd be the 0th element, and that's going to be the dot name, the dot name attribute of it. So as you can see, for name, the dot name attribute is name. For email, it's email, lowercase. This is the label, remember. The second thing that we're going to want is the user input. So the user input is going to be e dot target I. It's going to be the dot value. Now, if we console log both of these, we'll see what we get given. So we're going to say console log name and name, and then we'll also console log the input, and that's going to be user input. Let's have a look at what that gives us now. So we're going to submit, and as expected, it iterates through 3 times. If we're going to have the name, input Jake, name, input, blah, 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 question, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm just going to show you what happens when we do e.target length. Now, if we submit that, we get a fourth iteration with a name of nothing and an input of nothing, because this is the submit button. This has no information. We don't want to have this, and it actually ends up kind of ruining the data. It doesn't allow us to send it to the database because it's just an empty field. You can't send empty fields to a database, to a Firestore database, that is. So this is all the useful information we need, and now we can actually begin to inject it into this user object, which we're then going to send to the server or to the Firestore. So to do that, we're going to want to essentially add key value pairs to this object. Now, because our key value pair, the key itself is going to be a variable, it's going to change. We can't say user data dot name, because what that's going to do is it's going to create something. It's going to create an object with the key being name. Now, the key is not always going to be name. The key might be email. The key might be something else. So we don't actually want it to be the name. We want it to be the variable that name is assigned to. Now, to do that, we need to create it in a different way. We need to use these square brackets and then say name. As you can see now, this becomes colored because we're using the variable that comes from this name. Whereas when we're doing dot name, it calls the key name. So yeah, we just want it like that. And the value for that is just going to be the user input. If we then, after this loop, we then console log user data, we then console log this user data, we'll see that we get an object, user data. So we're then going to get this object which has the email, the name, and the question. This is all we need. So the next step is now we're going to be sending this object into our Firebase database. Now, to do that, we're going to be using this collection and add doc functions within the Firestore part of the Firebase SDK. And I'm just going to copy and paste what we need to do. So paste that in here. Now, just ignore this for the second. Oh, okay. So this is an asynchronous call. We've currently just got a normal function, so we need to make this an async function. So we just add that async there. That will now actually allow the rest of this. Okay, cool. So yeah, ignore kind of the screen for the moment. I'm just going to explain. What's happening over here. So we've got our document reference, which is saying await add doc collection. Then we're calling our database. We're calling Firestore collection. This is actually going to be the name of the collection. Oops. This is going to be the name of the collection, yeah. And this is something that we're going to be adding in the instance where we're calling the form component. But if there's only one collection you have, you can just add a string here, and it might be this. Let's say we're using a form for contact. You'd say contact, and that's going to be the name of the collection. That will be referencing this instance here. So booking requests is one collection, confirmed bookings is one collection, contact inquiries is another collection. If you use a string of a collection you already have, for example, contact inquiries, it will add the data to that collection. If you create a new one, if you use a string which of the name of a collection which doesn't exist, it will just create a new collection and add the data to that collection. With Firestore, with Firebase, you don't actually need to write any commands in order to create a database. You just need to say add it to this database, and if it doesn't exist, it will automatically create it, which is quite nice, I think. Now, to make it reusable, we're just going to use Firestore collection, and this will be something that when it comes to it and you put it into your website, it can vary, and depending on which part of the website you are depends on which collection it will add the data to. So this is our first argument. It's going to be this collection object using the database from the Get Firestore app and the Firestore collection prop. The second argument is going to be form data, and that's just going to be this object which we've created. So we're basically saying, okay, go to this collection. If it's not existing, just create it. That's all sorted out by Firebase. If it does exist, then just add it to it. And what we're adding to it is the form data. That will then automatically create an ID for it, a randomly generated ID like that, rather than you having to do it your own. You can choose to add your own ID. There's an option to do that. You need to use a slightly different method. You don't need to use the collection. But for our purposes, I don't want to be creating my own IDs. I just want it to be automatically generated. Now, this is literally all you need to do. If I go to the example in this website so we're in the contact form page. Now that's in our contact page. So as you can see, I've put this as the Firestore collection to be contact inquiries. If I just make a new one saying hello, and I then fill in this form, hello, submit it, add dot called with invalid data, must be an object, but it was an array. Okay, let's see what's happened there. Right, I think I've realised where the mistake was. So obviously I copy and pasted this from my own, from my previous code, and I've called that variable form data. Now this calling form data will take the prop form data, which is an array. We actually want to be using user data. So I'm just going to change that. And now if we submit it, there we go, document written with that ID. If we go over to here, which is the Firestore database, there we go, yeah. So a new collection's been created, and it's got this email name question hello, and yeah. So well, this is pretty much job done. Obviously, yeah, you need to give it an object, which is what this user data is. But that's it for this video. I hope you have found it interesting. Hope you've learned something new, and yeah, peace out.